place to.
Yeah, so we didn't do it.
Thinking people are tracking, I think is what happened.
At this point, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much for the presentation. You touched on, as you went through the presentation, stressors, and I'm sure Unit 1 coming up into operation was a stress on the system, not surprisingly. I guess my question is, now that you are operational with Unit 2, do you see that unit still as a stress on the system? And then also, if you could give me some, I think Sean, you alluded to just using the general term stressors. I guess looking forward over the next, say, 6 to 9 months, what would you say would be potential stressors on the organization?
Yeah, certainly, yeah. So I would say that Unit 2 coming online, the construction and commercial operations, stressor is behind us, but the operation of a dual unit facility and the Unit 2 itself, that stressor still exists. There's a lot of, not angst, but there's a lot of newness in operating 2 units, maintaining 2 units, preparing for 2 outages. What I would say, the stressors coming up over the next 6 months to 8 months would be how are we transitioning from testing and commercial operations into a routine. We've been talking to the work site about, all the workforce about getting commercial life's going to become normal. So what does normal look like? How are we going to normalize that? That's a stressor for a lot of people. The other element is preparing for an outage. And I think the stressor of going for an outage with the wait and see mentality that a lot of folks are rightfully having, that's a stressor in and of itself. In addition to the first time we're going to have 2 outages in 1 year. So how are we going to cope with resource sharing with other outages in the fleet and 2 outages at our facility is certainly going to cause some stress on the organization. And then to name a few.
Okay, good, no, thanks for that.
Yes, ma'am.
In a couple of different places, you talked about formal engagement with employees, and this might be a question kind of to all of you, maybe DJ, if you could comment on it also, is, I appreciate the fact, sounds like you're out in the field, you're walking around informally, what are you hearing from employees? Everyone turns to you, DJ, sorry.
He's closest to the action.
Biggest thing that I've seen and experienced myself is just, and I think Sean kind of hit the nail on the head with it, is with all the power ascension testing and all the various testing that we had with Unit 2 behind us, there is a level of stress that has gone away because we don't have putting a new unit online for the first time in 20 years in front of us. So that piece is gone. The piece that we still have in front of us, and we're still trying to figure it out, is how do we effectively and efficiently operate 2 units. That's somewhere we haven't been. Not even some of the older guys that have been here for a while. They haven't done that. I haven't done that, so that's still something in front of us.
How's the general, I guess with that as a stressor, not, I probably shouldn't use the word stressor, but as a, looking forward into your future as you go forward, and then you overlay this focus on safety culture and safety conscious work environment. Do you see employees kind of embracing that, we have operational issues, but is the safety culture seen as, oh, this is another thing off to the side, a separate item, or is there integration of that on site in again, not at the senior levels of the site, but more at the down at the day-to-day operation activity?
I think the nuclear safety culture is the issue of the site. And I believe that from solving the nuclear safety culture issues solves the operational issues that we may have at the plant. The operational performance of Unit 1 and Unit 2 has improved. Operator performance has improved. Site performance has improved. There are metrics that we have that we need to work on. Maintenance backlogs being one of them. However, I believe that the issue at the site, if you were to talk to people, is a nuclear safety culture. And I think the predominant theme right now is it does exist across the site. Workplace environment issues exist across the site. There's an acknowledgement of that, and there is a wait and see mentality we talked about of, okay, what is the next outage going to be like?
Kathy, I'll tell you that for my 2Cs meetings that I hold each month, the safety culture chill letter has been the number one topic for discussion that we've had over the last 4 months. There's been a lot of discussion to the point that Sean talked about in terms of the transition to a dual unit station, preparing for 2 outages in 1 year, how that's going to be executed, never having done it here at Watts-Bar. So there's a lot of concerns with that, but I've come back to where we're at on the safety culture chill letter, how are we progressing, feedback in terms of what they're seeing. And the other piece to the stressors that you asked about, our workforce has been on extended hours and have worked a lot over the last couple of years, in particular in completing Unit 2, getting us through the fuel load startup, the power sensor testing, and that's taken a toll on them, on the standpoint of their families. So one of the things that Sean and I and the rest of the leadership team are certainly committed to is to making sure that as we make this transition, we're also focusing on doing everything we can, not only to safely operate the plant, but to create the opportunity for our folks to have a normal, predictable life, to be able to do the things with their families, their friends that they've sacrificed over the last couple of years in particular, to help in those stressors that you asked about. And those are just a few of the things that I've heard from the 2Cs that I've had over the last 2 months.
See, and while we're balancing, we're trying to make sure that we're establishing an environment where people will tell us what we need to know and tell us some of the stuff we feel like, may be hard to hear. We also have to understand that there's a vital element of a safety culture that has to do with discipline and rigor around following our procedures, being precise about what we put our hands on, how we do that, being diligent about precise control of the reactor. And those are elements that we can never lower our standards. So as Paul described, trying to get the normalcy, that getting the plant commercial is a step in that direction, but it's a new normal. Okay, it's a new normal. It's a dual reactor site, and that's different. And that has more challenges, but it's been, we know we have the talent and staff to do it effectively and to preserve our margins of safety.
Yes, I do have one. The inspectors have noted an increase in performance and looking at the safety conscious work environment as well. We've seen some improvements there in the operations area. Going through the list of the items we talked about, sounds like it's definitely a first step in the right direction. The question I have centers around the fact of sustainability, because safety conscious work environment is very dynamic. As individuals change positions, the dynamic in the departments and their work group changes. So with the changes that you made now, you're seeing some positive influence in the safety culture. How are you going to sustain that? Have you looked at that? Because as people move, are some of those practices going to change?
So one of the things that I pointed out before, so the institutionalizing the aspects of being better informed, having informed ourselves better with respect to engaging with our workforce for the safety culture monitoring panels. We need to rely on those processes, so that if we implement those processes consistently, then we should be able to identify where we're having potential for a problem. And then the reaction from us has to be that we go understand that problem and start to work to resolve it before it grows into anything more. So I think the key to sustainability is to, because you're exactly right, that can change dynamically based on personnel. So we have to rely on our process to continue to check, recheck, and examine that, invite independent methods to be able to make sure that we're not getting any blind spots, and then act accordingly with a sense of urgency to try to alleviate any issues that we find out. So, as Sean said, this tool to try to look at precursors and stressors to try to point us to, like, if we were to make this change in this area right now, it could be too much to handle. So we're evaluating that and assessing the risk of doing that before we're engaging in that kind of stuff. So it's got to be a behavior that we inculcate into our organization that's reinforced by our processes that roll up.
If I may, Mike, there's another thing, our people health meeting, got established. Where we talk about the people in our departments. We command a senior leadership challenge with staffing, personnel changes, how long are they going to be there, when's the next rotation, and we're having those discussions. What would be the impact of a change in this organization with these individuals? What development opportunities do we have with some of the personnel and moves? So we hadn't done that as effectively in the past, but those are some of the things that, in addition to the tools that we have with the stressors, the nuclear safety conscious monitoring panel, really looking at them in advance to get out in front with the people issues and where they're going to be in our people health.
And I think that's good, and as I said before, I'm seeing the improvements, but some of those issues too, when I look at that, I see that in soft skills with the leadership team that's in place. That's the way it's happening now from lessons learned. So going forward, once again, how is that going to be sustained, especially with some of the soft skills?
So, with respect to, our approach to trying to develop leadership behaviors is based upon a set of competencies that we evaluate on ourselves. So, we do it in a couple of ways. So we have a series of leadership competencies that the behaviors associated with those competencies are checked and observed, then we would expect that we would have sustainability in regards to this issue. And additionally, we look at our organization as a team, because even though you could focus on individual leadership competencies, how the organization functions collectively as a team involves a different set of competencies. So we look at ourselves from that lens with respect to, how does the team function as a unit to determine that, we're vetting things, people's opinions are being expressed, we're challenging ourselves to make sure that we're not engaged in a group think type mentality, and we're trying to encourage those behaviors. And we evaluate ourselves on those.
Additionally, Alan, we have leadership development consultant for each of the nuclear sites with corporate oversight for that individual. And they're very active in looking at the dynamics of the leadership team, where we have potential weaknesses and what we need to do to address those. For example, that when I moved into the position that I'm in, there was an overlay of strengths and weaknesses, gaps, that was provided to me based on Sean's strengths and weaknesses, my strengths and weaknesses, so that as site vice president and plant manager, we were aware of the things that we needed to be cautious about, where we were overly strong in certain areas where that could be a compounding force for the station that may not always deliver the right result in a long-term sustainability. So that's another example of things that we're doing to make sure that as we make changes, we're assessing the alignment of individuals in those key roles to make sure that they support what we're trying to establish here for sustainability.
One other point I'll make is that our process for how we develop our strategies for improvement in many areas of performance are culminated in our business planning process. And in that business planning process, there will be site-specific business planning initiatives And then at a fleet level, we call them alignment level initiatives. So, there's an alignment initiative on working plan. So we have many of the key activities and the new initiatives that are evolving, that we're finding benefit from experience at Bar, are being pulled into the business plan. And that's how we're standardizing our approach across the fleet. So there's a suite of repetitive style engagement activities that are in our business plan going forward that involve not just Bar, but the other two sites as well, on many of the things you heard described.
Thank you.
I've got one question.
The bullet here that says complete a supplemental effectiveness review of the root cause actions, and you're thinking in December of this year.
And I guess I want you to elaborate a little bit on how you're going to judge effectiveness, especially given that you're going to do a assessment, a safety culture assessment in the first quarter of the following year. What do you use to judge the effectiveness of your actions?
We're going to take a look at some of the ECP pulse, the Employee Concerns Pulsings, and the Nuclear Safety Conscious Monitoring Panel results, as well as some of the external feedback that we've received so far. We'll take a look at some of the other indicators, allegations, anonymous condition reports, et cetera. That's going to give us, this is not an interim, we need a supplemental one. We want to get as many check and adjust effectiveness reviews that we can, because you realize that the corrective actions are going to have to change sometimes as the environment changes, and as we either make progress or we realize that progress is stagnating. So it's important that we get out in front of it as early as possible.
I think maybe what's causing some confusion on this point, oftentimes when we do follow-up effectiveness reviews based on the completion of a series of corrective actions. That's not what this is, because this is kind of like a waypoint. It's really not, so it's not a complete effectiveness review, it's a check and adjust process.
And you mentioned the safety culture monitoring panel, but what they're using are those same data points, the ECP pulsings, the anonymous CRs, so.
More than that, they're using also, we have positive trend codes for highlighting positive trends for nuclear safety culture through the corrective action program. They're looking at comments from the panel members that are at the Nuclear Safety Conscious Monitoring Panel, as well as the senior safety panel that meets once a quarter to assess the progress of the panels. So they're using more than just that. So, and as we go forward, if we don't have the right data, we'll continue to check it and adjust it as we move on.
Have you benchmarked other safety culture monitoring panels?
Yes, we have. From the corporate point of view, we have benchmarked. I personally have not, but the corporation has benchmarked other panels.
Because I guess what I'm thinking is, it wasn't able to see operations previously. And I'm just trying to figure out what it's looking at now that's gonna make it a better effectiveness review. What's different?
Well, one thing that's different is we're inviting the workforce to participate, so that, we're not getting shaded by anything we may think is in the data, because they're there to tell us whether we're getting the right point of view. So that's one, I would say significant. The other is that we've developed indices that we've never had before. So we've got indices that are using a culmination of data that's pointing us in directions of possible trends that would give us forewarning about an area that needs more attention. So just the current nuclear safety culture monitoring process is not exactly what it was. It's
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's questions from NRC, so thanks for answering our questions. Just a couple of closing remarks from me. I have formal remarks, but before I go into this, I just wanted to note two other things that really resonated with me. As one is the fact that you'll be submitting an update to your response to the CEL in December, so we'll look forward to that. I mean, I think you, in the meetings we've had, you've communicated that information to us, but to have it in a written format and coming into us in one location would be good. The other thing that Mikey said at the very end that I was happy to hear is that you're taking lessons, that things that you're learning and that you're employing at the Watts-Bar facility and applying it and considering it with regards to fleet operations. It's one of the things that we look for in instances like this, is there are, like operating experience, there are lessons that are learned, and to the extent that you look at it from the standpoint of implication on your own fleet, and then Sean, you're doing the presentation at the meeting in Annapolis, I think you said it was, that where you're sharing with industry, because I think the fact that the entire nuclear industry could benefit by some of the experiences that you would have are a good thing. So I just wanted to note that those two things in particular. So in formal closing remarks, there are some things that I'll say that I think you heard me say when we opened. Alan had reiterated them, but I think it's worth saying again because there are areas that are very important to us. The unit, Watts-Bar Unit 1, is currently in what we call column 1 of the reactor oversight process action matrix. The fact that we have issued the CEL, despite the fact that we've issued the CEL, we do have confidence that TVA is going to continue to operate Unit 1 and Unit 2 safely. At the same time, we'll be making efforts to look at the environment, and as our inspectors are in the field, obviously they'll be looking at both things. To date, we've not identified any serious safety issues or instances involving significant plant issues. We have noted an increase of operational issues that are minor or very low safety significance. We've increased our presence at site. As you know, we do have the full-time inspectors on site, but we supplement out of headquarters as well as from the regional office. So we have been increased our presence evenings, off shifts, weekends. We also have noted that you've increased your control room oversight presence during normal operations too, so that has has been observed by our inspectors. So based on this continuing oversight from NRC, looking at what you're doing, the residents have actually have noted an improvement in conduct of operations. So I do want to point that out. We also realize that the licensed reactors operators have to successfully complete a very rigorous and extensive training program to ensure that each operator is maintaining and demonstrates the ability to safely operate the plant. This is very important to us, as evidenced by the licenses that are issued by the agency. So that license requires them to operate it the unit in a safe manner within the license and the design requirements. As again, our inspectors being there on a day-to-day basis have engaged your licensed operators and we have noted to our inspectors that they would not operate the plant outside of those parameters. So we do have reasonable assurance that they would not knowingly violate the license or design requirements during operations. So ultimately, as you said, TVA needs to maintain and to address the safety concerns in the safety conscious work environment that we have right now, but also to put in aspects of a program that will sustain operations into the future. NRC will continue to maintain an awareness through our inspection program. I would say that meetings like this, we would look forward to another meeting like this in the future. We'll put it at a TBD for right now as far as when it would be. You have several actions. I think you'll let the December letter come in, let some of your efforts go forward, but we would look to meetings such as this. So Dr. Mike, if you would like to say anything, otherwise we'll close the meeting.
No,
Good, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the business portion of the meeting with TVA. As Alan said, we'll take a 5-minute break.